Hi, welcome back to Adam's Pump Channel. So this morning we're going to talk about Lovejoys in reference to non-clog pumps. We don't laser align these things. We have registered fits. We build these in the shop, but we do repair them, and they come in from garage builds. Jimmy the Okie built one in his garage, whoever. And we have to inherit these and sometimes deal with Lovejoy misalignments, and we actually aren't perfect. So sometimes we have new builds that do get misaligned in the construction process. We are trying to eliminate that every day and get better and better. But here's the theory. So the first thing is you would want to build, if you're doing this, a square that looks similar to this. In all reality, it's almost the same size. You're looking at about a square. So from this plane here to this plane is a square plane, a 90-degree angle. And you notch this out with the machine so that you can get around the bearing, which is usually a Sealmaster or a Dodge bearing, because when your Lovejoy sticks up on the shaft here, there's a bearing sticking out, like an L110 might hit, so you can't put a square edge on it, or it's going to hit that bearing that's in here. So it would start by making a square in your machine shop, or taking an existing square and just notching it out with the grinder cleanly. Don't warp it. Make sure it's a square field when you're done, a square plane. Now you take that square and you set it on your base plate of your pump and bring it into the Lovejoy. Now that square should be about 6 inches tall, so it can clear your bearing, go on your base plate, clear your bearing, and then come up and touch these. You should have is it touches perfect on the bottom one and also goes into the second one, the motor Lovejoy. So this is the shaft, pump shaft, this is the motor, and they touch perfectly. There can be a tiny bit of variance. Then you want to go to a quarter quadrant. So if you're looking at the top of this Lovejoy, when you square it, you want to go that way and that way. Just look at it as a square. You could go this way and that way, that way and that way, that way and that way. As long as you do one angle, one square, you've done all you need to do. So wherever you can pick it up at, here and then here. And you want to see it touching across the board. Once more, there is a small variance you can have, but you don't want to see a lot. So if the bottom is out like this on that square field, then what you have is you have a shaft that is bowed coming through the top plate. And this happens in construction. If your shaft gets bowed, it'll turn that Lovejoy because the shaft is coming through at a slight angle. Or if your top plate, your motor plate, isn't machined right or isn't welded or fabricated right, you could have something like this, where it comes in and they're just not touching. They're very bad. You can see there's a misalignment there. That's exaggerated. They would never be that bad. That's visible to the human eye, but just to exaggerate it. The other way we find that they're built is they're perfectly parallel to one another, but it's got a big offset because that motor stand, that registered fit up here was welded offset. Or it doesn't even have a registered fit. They set the motor up here. We have some competitors that just set the motor, line it up, and drill the holes. And then when you go to change your motor, those holes are wallowed out, and you can get it moved around because there's no registered fit. So when you're dealing without a registered fit, you really need to have this tool and align it on both quadrants. So depending on which one it is, if it's square to the bottom, to the top plate to this, then there's nothing wrong down here. But if you put this on and there's a misalignment then, or if there's a misalignment like that on either quadrant, then you know it's the top plate, that motor stand. Once more, if this one's good from your square to your base plate, you're not touching the pump. Now you're working on that motor stand or this motor, shimming it with the shim underneath it. You could do that. So if you can, you could put a washer underneath one side and you could shim it. Now that's a temporary fix. We don't want to do that because then we always have to remember to shim it. But if we're running this on every job, that's all we really need to do. Then we can basically rule that possibility of a Lovejoy issue being an issue after an install. We run this square. Build these squares in the shop. Build them about 6 inches tall, approximately, with a nice notch, and then just 2 inches out, 3 inches out. Make sure your base plate, your top plate is clean before you set that square down on both quadrants, here and here. And that's about it.